Everybody, it's your main man. Let me take my glasses off because I can see you very well, my friends. Anthony Brogdon here at Strong Inspirations, where we give it to you straight, no chaser. We put a little bit of lime, a lemon, a couple of ice cubes, and it might even do them funny ice cubes, you know, and then them shapes and stuff like that, so that you are intoxicated with this good Black history. And the lady I have on the channel, she's a sharp, good-looking sister out of that New Mexico. Yep, you right, that's it. You don't hear much about New Mexico from a Black perspective, and that's why we are going to excite you with what she's got to say. So hit the subscribe button on the channel. It's free. We love it when you subscribe. Hit the like button on this video, because like I say, you might not know much about the Black history, the good Black history out of New Mexico. So like the video and the notifications bell, and tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't do that. That's not right. Check it out. I believe you'll be blessed a little bit more if you tell somebody about Strong Inspirations, because you're doing it for their good and the good of the community, because that's what we're here for, to inspire, to enlighten, and to entertain. You probably have seen a number of videos on the channel. We are international. I got some out of Africa, out of Australia, out of Ireland. I'm trying to hit some, see if I can do some Cuba and Latin countries and all that, because there's history all over. Brazil, what have you. We out of Canada. And so all that's coming down the pipe. I tell you, my friends, let me show you how serious I am on this Black history. I produced a documentary. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America, 1800 to 1960. Very good film, not just because I did it, but I had a few other people, not a few, I had quite a lot of people tell me that they like my movie, to be perfectly honest with you. And I toured it to over 40 cities across America on my own dime, you know, and I had a lot of fun along the way, so on and so forth. The movie is streaming on Amazon. It's Business in the Black. And then, because people said they like my movie and the topic of the Black business, I wrote a book on it. It's called Black Business Book. It's got over 200 facts. I tell you what, I got all the ways slaves learned how to read and write, you know, the different instances of that scenario. I got all the ways slaves gained their freedom. I list probably 30 businesses that were owned by slaves, and what they did with the money, in most instances, was buy their freedom and make a way for themselves. Right, slaves who own businesses. I list the names, what they did, how much wealth they accumulated, so on and so forth. That's in my book. There's no other book like this. I truly believe it. Not as thorough, not as comprehensive, and not as easy to read. And there's some facts in here that you're gonna be like, man, I never heard that. I tell you the link where I found them. And I don't add no commentary. I want the fact to stand on its own merit. So go to businessintheblack.net and get you a copy of my book. Please do it today, right? And you hear me use this term strong a lot. This is my favorite word. I wish my middle name was Strong. How about that? I had a license plate called Strong. And in my world, Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to my guest today. She's a strong soul sister coming out of that New Mexico, Albuquerque, with 2 Q's, I was told. Everybody get it right. Come on, introduce yourself. Thank you for coming on Strong Inspirations.
Thank you for the invitation. My name is Rita Padrell, and I'm sitting here in New Mexico, the land of enchantment, which is filled with rich African-American history and legacy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I've never been there. I gotta come because that enchantment, I like that. Why did they call it that? How did that become their motto?
Well, we lost the Sunshine State. The sun shines here more days out of the year than any other state, but somehow we sold it to Florida. And so
Okay,
now we're the land of enchantment, but
okay,
it is enchanting. You
okay.
know, we've got mountain ranges that are unbelievable. We're 5,000 miles above sea level. And so it's dry and brown, but a beautiful state.
Oh, I love it. Now, I do got to do this just for a second. I let my, talk about my guests, on some personal tip. But where are you from originally?
So I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh man,
And
okay. I'll be honest with you, everybody. I'm in Detroit, but I used to and still do. I love them Steelers and I love them Pirates. That's my colors there. Oh my God. And so, how did your family get there? From where? Where's the plantation?
So from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my grandfather was born in 1860 in enslavement in Virginia. And once enslavement ended, he was the youngest in his family of 10. They migrated to Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania had been free of enslavement for a while, and Virginia was still into sharecropping and very oppressive and very bitter. And so they moved to Pennsylvania for better opportunities and to kind of get out from under the oppression that the South was starting to adopt.
I've had people on the channel who said that who did not leave. Can you imagine, was it a scary moment, or did they have somebody else in his family leave first and then get to Pittsburgh, or how might that have happened?
No, he was one of the first ones to leave. Some of the family went Washington, D.C., so
Okay.
not too far.
Yeah.
And some of the family went New York, but he went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
What did now, is there sharecropping in your family? Did his parents share, your
Well,
great
his
grandparents?
parents were actually enslaved when he got out. When he got to
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, he got his own farm, and he
Okay.
was a farmer in Pittsburgh, and he was a Baptist preacher in
Okay.
Pittsburgh. On the one side, my grandfather Turfley, on the other side, he was born in 1859, enslaved. His family was enslaved, but his mother gained her freedom in Maryland, and then they also migrated. He migrated to Pittsburgh. He became the first African-American doctor in the Hill District, and went and got his education
Okay.
because
Yeah.
he was free before slavery ended.
Yeah. So did he? So he's got some, and both sides of your family, no doubt. But he's got wherewithal to become a doctor. That's high. That's high. With an educational background and the wherewithal to complete, medical school and to be competent like that. Is there some before him that gave him that kind of skill set, maybe?
He had passed away before I was born.
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, both my grandfathers married very young women that were 20 years
really?
younger than them, and so
Okay.
had children later in their lives. So really, I don't have a lot of his history. I know that his mother was enslaved. I know that she got her freedom prior to the Civil War,
Okay.
and so he was born, free. So
Okay. I love it. And so but him being a doctor, so he's middle class in society. Is that a good
well,
way of putting it?
so going back to what things were like,
Yeah,
um, so he is in the Hill District. Access to your white hospitals is difficult
that's
for
right.
African American doctors, even in a state like Pennsylvania.
That's right.
The African American community still has deficient in resources. Our
Okay.
access to the banks at that time is still minimal.
Sure.
So his fees that he charged, were chickens and,
Oh,
was very,
really?
he bartered,
Yeah.
with a lot of the people. He birthed uh, all the African-American babies in the African-American community at that time. My
Okay.
father also becomes a physician. He's the youngest of my grandfather's 10 children. Now, at the time he becomes a physician, he became the first African-American physician that integrated into the white hospital system. So
Okay.
even though Pennsylvania is known as this more liberal state, didn't have enslavement at the time of the Civil War, it still had a lot of oppressive policies in
Sure,
place
sure,
and still had the African-American community pretty much locked in,
sure.
and segregated, and, housing discrimination and those types of things were still going on. And
Yeah, sure.
we've had,
What was the neighborhood for Black people in Pittsburgh and the one for white people? And is there a railroad track that
oh no,
separated them?
well,
That kind of thing.
Squirrel Hill was known as, the more affluent, where white people lived and African Americans didn't live. The
Okay.
Hill District, I think what was interesting about the social dynamics of that time is because since we were in our own communities and unavailable to move into other communities, you had all different social economic people within
Yeah.
your community.
All right. Yeah.
So you had physicians within your community, you had morticians within your community,
Yeah.
and school
Sure.
teachers. So you had the ability for young people to see African Americans in all different types of occupations because you had that type of segregation
Sure.
in
Sure.
the community. So the Hill District was fairly big. I mean, George Benson's out of the Hill District.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the
Okay.
playwright August Wilson is from the Hill District, and his
Okay.
plays mirror the experience of the Hill District. So a lot of literary and music comes out of there. It was a very big community. You had Wiley Avenue, one of the big thoroughfares in the Hill District, and Janella Street and Bedford. So it was really a very thriving African-American community.
So what steered you into your appreciation and love for Black history?
I think coming out of a very strong legacy and not really thinking about it, and then all of a sudden when you start to think about it, I mean, I went to New Mexico to go to college, and I
Okay,
often
there you
say
go.
that you can go within the integrated school system, you can go from kindergarten to your PhD and never learn anything about African American presence in this country. And so it was later in my life, sometime in my 30s, I started to realize that I could develop my own educational curriculum, and I could develop it around whatever I wanted. And my brother-in-law at family reunions was getting the history of the older members of the family, and just fascinating the things and they had gone through and how much it took for them to survive. And so Pat partnered up with a friend of mine, Brenda Dabney, who is a longtime Indigenous
Indigenous means
resident.
Indian.
No, indigenous to the state of New Mexico.
Okay.
She's like, her great grandfather was a Buffalo soldier. On her other side of the family, the Castillo side, generations and generations in New Mexico. So we got together and decided to interview early African-American settlers in the state of New Mexico, why they came, what types of things They did. So we kind of looked at, who came, and then what happened when you got here? What types
Okay.
of things happened? What
Oh,
types of
man.
things did you, do? What was the experience of the
Yes.
state of New Mexico?
Okay, well, since you said that, let's go into it. If you don't mind, give us some of the early African Americans, how they got there, the story of Black people in New Mexico.
Well, so the context that we looked at was African Americans who came after the Civil War,
Right.
and why they came. And one of the big reasons that happened was after the Civil War and after Reconstruction and after the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which granted us access to all public places regardless of color, was repealed as unconstitutional. The southern states jumped right into oppressive laws, and to uphold those laws, a type of terrorism. So the Jim Crow laws were literally a terrorist laws
Sure,
that
sure.
designated people by law as less than, and put in place all of these restrictions of movement.
Sure.
And that caused 6 million African Americans in the southern states to migrate out of those states.
Sure.
And most migrated north, but a
Sure.
considerable amount of African Americans migrated into the territories of the West, thinking that that would give them more freedom. And so they did come west. So you had the Buffalo Soldiers, which provided employment for unemployed African American men, after the Civil War. And those troops, the 9th and 10th Cavalry, were stationed in New Mexico to protect the white settlers against the indigenous native population. And so
Indians.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Apaches,
Okay.
and they protected the borders because, again, New Mexico was a territory. It had been under the Mexico had at one point owned the state of New Mexico. So your borders were very unstable between Mexico and New Mexico. And your Buffalo Soldiers were the ones who protected those borders for the white settlers. So those men came, and many of them stayed. And then other people came with occupations that fit New Mexico. So you had farmers coming into the state, and you had homesteading. So the 1862 Homestead Act allowed African Americans, or any American citizen 21 years of age, hadn't taken up arms against this country, to homestead 160 acres of land.
Oh, hold on, let me stop you there. I mean, no, when you say homestead, they gave them the land.
They gave them the land under conditions. So they're trying to settle this vast amount of unsettled land. New Mexico, has the territory has a lot of land. So they're trying to get this land settled. And so they want people. So the 160 acres, you paid $18, but there were conditions. You had 5 years to improve the land, and improvement of the land meant so much of the land had to be cultivated for product, for crops. And you had to build a home, and you had to fence it in, and you had 5 years to do this. So it sounds like, great, you're getting this free land. However, you are in a semi-arid state. Where access to water is going to cost you some money, because you're going to have to drill a well. So you do have to have some economic resources, and you have a 5-year time period in which to make these improvements. And if you do that, and that is determined by a land agent, through the federal government. They'll come out and assess whether they think you've done the proper improvements. And if you do, then they would recommend that you would get a patent.
Okay.
And then once you got a patent, then you own that 160 acres of land.
Let me do something here right quick, and let me back up just a second in this regard. Were there Black people in New Mexico before 65, or when did, I mean, who's like the first Black person to get there?
So the first Black person, and I don't have the exact, he came in the 1500s.
Oh, really?
He came
Okay.
with a expedition of Spaniards that were conquering lands in quote, the New World. His name was Estanvinico, and he is said to be the first Black man that the indigenous Native American population ever saw. But he came with the Spanish explorers. His group, I believe, started their shipwrecked, so they had a long trail into New Mexico, but most of the Spaniards that came into New Mexico came through Mexico, what is now Mexico, but Spain conquered Mexico and the indigenous Aztec and Inca Indians, and then just kept going north and entered the territory of New Mexico, and then tried to take that territory also.
So now you say he's enslaved. Is he by himself? He's the only one, or there are others?
He was
he's
the
just
only
the one
one
name that people know?
He was the only one that survived that expedition. That expedition, they
Oh.
lost many of the people who came because of the shipwreck. But most of the expeditions that came up through Mexico had many enslaved people they brought with them, because Spain was a big part of the slave trade. So when they came up through Mexico, part of their resources were enslaved people that they brought with them, who fought in the territory of New Mexico. But what was interesting was, because you were in a territory, and because these soldiers were far away from their homelands, and you had the indigenous, like the Pueblo Indians, who were fighting very hard not to be taken over by the Spaniards, that some of your Africans sided with the indigenous population. They went over to their side.
So they escaped from their enslavement.
Fought the Spaniards. And so, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. So you had that going on. And then you had the indigenous, you had the enslaved people starting to marry into the population, which was very sparse here in New Mexico. So they, married into the Mexican people who lived in New Mexico, and the native people who lived here in New Mexico. Yeah.
Is there when we talk about they were enslaved, they were really just, you do what I want you to do. I need you to clean around the house. I need you to go out, fight for my safety. And I'm not paying you to do this. And you have no rights. Is that kind of their status at that point, maybe?
Yes.
That sums it up.
I mean, it was very similar, not, to enslavement in the South, where the enslaved person took on the name of whoever owned them. And so the names of the enslaved people who came into the territory of New Mexico was Cortez and, Candelaria, those types of names.
Yeah. Are the enslaved, do you know of a particular part of Africa that they come from, where the Spanish brought them?
I really didn't study that part of Africans coming into the state. So we did have two historians, Dr. Maisha Patan, who was also from Pittsburgh, who did quite a bit of extensive history on enslaved people who came in with the Spaniards. And Dr. Cortez Williams also did quite a bit of historical research on that. Most of my historical research has been African Americans who came to New Mexico, the territory, after the Civil War.
Now, is there some order of nationalities? I mean, the white people, do the
So
pure Africans, so on and
you've
so
got the
forth?
Spaniards. Okay, so you have the native tribes who were here first, your
Right.
Pueblo Indians, your Apaches, your Navajos, you have, and then you have the Spaniards who came in. And since they came up through Mexico and this was part of Mexico, so you have the people who lived here who were from that particular area.
Sure.
And yeah, and then you have the Anglo population. So you have the indigenous native population, your Anglo population, and your Hispanic population. But your Hispanic population, you got to include African Americans, I mean, Africans
Right.
with that, because they came with the Spaniards. So they are here when the Spaniards are here. So
Okay.
even though the population of Africans is small, it's still present.
I got you. Is there, and I have somebody else, a couple of people on the channel who they're Black Indians and they're Seminole, but they're because, somebody had relations with an Indian. Is there a definition for somebody who is like that, who is African, but their ancestor had relations with an Indian?
They have a whole hierarchy scale that the
Okay.
Spaniards developed here in New Mexico. And yes, I mean, you have Africans who came to the territory of New Mexico who married into the indigenous tribes, who married
Okay.
into the Pueblo villages. We had just recently at Laguna, the governor of Laguna, which is the hierarchy of your Native American political system. The governor is the highest position, and the last governor of Laguna was a person of African American legacy.
Oh, really? Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
So now going from that point back to the Civil War in your area of expertise, let's say, when people moved there, did they moved from all over the United States, or mainly from Texas because it's close?
They moved from many different states, but mainly from southern states.
Sure.
Because, like I was saying, once that oppressiveness happened in the South, in the southern states, through law and violence, people were looking for something better.
Yeah,
they didn't
sure.
want to be re-enslaved. And how do we get away from that? And so your migration west was migration number one into, so you're talking Texas, you're talking Georgia, you're talking Mississippi, African Americans coming out of these very oppressed states where they had witnessed many times horrific things happening.
Sure.
And seeking and having a vision that they wanted something better for themselves and their posterity, and they moved west. And when they got into the territory of New Mexico, of course, you had the opportunity to homestead land.
Sure,
I mean, you had it in the South too, but it could be difficult.
Sure.
But so they had the 1862 Homestead Act, and they could homestead land. And then in 1909, the Homestead Act was extended for the Western states. So then you could homestead 320 acres. And then in 1919, I believe, the Stock Raising Homestead Act extended it to 640 acres. So you had African American communities that were based on the sovereign ownership of land. The first one was Blackdom, and Blackdom had over 40 families, again, most of them from Georgia, Mississippi. The founder of Blackdom, Frank Boyer, was from Georgia, walked for a year to get to Blackdom, which is around Roswell in southern New Mexico, encouraged people to come, put advertisements in the Crisis magazine. Okay. You can come here, you can own your own land. You don't have to deal with Jim Crow. He puts that in the ad and gets over 40 families or so homesteading these 160 acres around in the early 1900s. He incorporates Blackdom to be a city in the 1920s. But then they got hit with some of the things that still hit African Americans today, the lack of economic resources, whatever banking systems there were, they weren't catering to African Americans, which meant in addition to having to make improvements on that homestead, in order to get economic solvency to do that, they had to work 8 hours in a nearby city. So they had the 160 acres, and then by day they're going to Roswell, working for other people on other people's farms, in other people's houses to get the money so they can make the improvements. And then they're going back on the weekends and they're working all weekend to improve this land. And then there's no water. So in order to have crops, you got to irrigate, and drilling a well was very expensive. So that economic hit them. And also they had during that time insect invasions and destroying of the crops, the insects. But in spite of all that, they had their own community. They had built their own church. They had built a school. The surrounding community was very alarmed because they didn't, are your kids going to be trying to access no, we don't want your educational system. If you give us the materials to build our school, we'll leave you alone. That's how they bargained.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and they built their own school, and within their population, they had people who already had their degrees. African Americans were getting their degrees out of historically Black colleges right after slavery. So people had their degrees, and they were teaching in the school in Blackdom. And it was really, when you look at it, how we saw segregation versus how the dominant society. So when the dominant society decides to segregate, they decide to segregate because we don't want to be around you.
Right.
There's something wrong with you. You're less than us. But when the Boyers wanted their kids in schools taught by Black people, run by Black people. Why? Because we just left this oppression. And we just left white people who hate us.
Right.
They will hate our children. What will they teach our children?
There you go. I love it.
We don't want them teaching our children.
Right.
Not because we think we're better than them, but we don't want an oppressive mindset.
Right.
That we think, so we want to teach our children.
Let me ask you this. Excuse me, I don't mean no harm to interrupt you in this regard. Is Blackdom still a town, and is there monuments
Blackdom, there? So what happened to Blackdom because of those issues of water? It started to dissolve around 1924. So it lasted the end of the late 1898, right into about 1924. And then the people pretty much stayed in New Mexico. They went different directions, but Frank Boyer, who had already tried to do an independent town 4 times, it was something he really wanted to do, moved his family to Vado, New Mexico, which became an independent African-American town for a very long period of time. And the same thing had,
is that if you know this, is that a similar story of what happened when Black people moved to Oklahoma and they had all these Black townships and whatnot, and now they might have had hundreds of them and now they have 20 of them? It's kind of similar kind of concept, maybe.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, there's certain social, societal things that happen that impact. So like Vado became a farming town, you had the homesteading, and you had sovereign ownership.
Okay.
So since we owned the land,
Yes,
you
I love
owned
it.
you also owned the grocery store. You weren't paying rent to somebody. You owned it.
Yes.
You owned everything, but things evolve. And so like in the 1950s, all of a sudden, all your young African American men are being taken into the military.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so
I
in
got you.
Vado, they've got a military wall, like 25, 30, a lot of them Boyers, all of whom went into the military. Well, what happens? You see other things. You get into the military, you go different places,
Yeah, right, right.
and
So it
and you
loses population and so
you
on and
see
so forth.
different opportunities,
Right,
and so you may not come back to
right.
that. So it was a lot of differing factors
Sure.
that I think caused people to leave those towns and
Yeah, I
move
got you.
elsewhere. I mean, integration became the time, so all of a sudden things were coming more integrated, and you weren't confined to just certain
Right.
places.
Let me ask you this then. Was there ever any massacre or anything, a riot, because of how white people hate us when we're doing so well? They want to tear it down. Did any of that kind of thing happen in any of the black towns or blackdom or what have you?
Um, there wasn't anything like Tulsa where
Okay.
white people just came in and
Okay.
destroyed
Okay.
the black town.
Okay.
The types of things that were done were not that blatant.
Was there a lynching?
So it wasn't. No, it was like not having economic resources.
I got you. I
You
got you.
know,
I
it
got
it
you. I
was
got you.
it was like if you stay good, if you are good Negroes, if
Right.
you're
Right.
good colored folks,
Right.
we'll leave you alone.
I
You
got you.
know, so yeah, but you had and we're the fifth largest state.
Right.
We only have 3 million people within the whole state. And you're talking about in that era, it was way less than that.
Sure.
So there's no, so the space between people is enormous.
I
I
got
mean,
you.
when you talk, when they did the stock raising Homestead Act for the 640 acres in the West, we have a whole community in Las Cruces. Over 40 families took advantage of getting 640 acres, but 640 acres, that's a lot of distance
Yeah,
between
that's right.
people.
That's right.
That's
That's
a
right.
lot of space,
That's right.
and families did interesting things with that ownership of land. But one of the things that's consistent that we did in the early 1920s, 30s, and 40s is that because we had land and because we were sovereign and because we had a vision of what we wanted for ourselves, there wasn't this big thing of we need to be going to the same places the dominant place society is going. We own
Okay.
our land, so we can build our own hotels, which we did. We built our own hotels, our own boarding houses, our own grocery stores. We had our own construction companies, our own catering businesses, and we catered to all the big shots in the state of New Mexico. But we had, those centers. We had our own churches.
Now, when you say that, though, what city in particular are these? I know it might be through the whole
This
state.
is happening in almost every city that you have an African American population. So it's happening in Vado. They've got all of those things. It's happening in Las Cruces. It's happening in Albuquerque. Believe it or not, it's happening in Raton, New Mexico, which is far north. Because the other thing that's bringing African Americans into New Mexico and into these communities is the railroad. The railroad, they needed the railroad to go across country. They needed workers. They advertised in the northern states for you know, colored workers, you come here, you're going to get paid, you've got opportunity. So here came people on the railroad, mining. There was a lot of mining in New Mexico, and you had a
Oh,
lot of African-American miners. And so
now hold on, let me stop you there. Mining coal or what?
Coal
Oh,
and
coal. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
okay. What has as we move up the timeline, what is the dominant industry, large corporations or something that they do, is farming
Probably
it
the
or something
dominant
else?
industry in New Mexico currently is the military.
Oh, okay.
You know, we've got Los Alamos. That's where the atomic bomb was developed. You know,
Oh,
we have. I mean, Albuquerque is full of military bases. When you go
oh,
down south, Las Cruces now, you know, has Nassau, and you have military. You have White
okay,
Sands.
okay,
So military is probably your biggest
okay,
industry. And after
okay.
that, I would say small business. New
Oh, okay,
Mexico is full of small business.
okay,
So restaurants and yeah, it's
okay. Is there particular holidays that are celebrated by African Americans in or Indian population?
well, I mean, we're part of the US, the African
Yeah,
Americans
yeah,
here. So
yeah.
Juneteenth has always been a big celebration in New Mexico. Number one, because it's a border state to Texas,
Yeah,
and
okay, okay,
many of your Texas residents came into New Mexico and they
okay,
celebrated Juneteenth in Texas, and they continued to celebrate Juneteenth when they came into the state of New Mexico.
okay.
So
I got you.
so that would be.
Is there a particular you talked about the different business communities? Are there did the musicians, did it ever become like a part of the chitlin circuit where some of the big name artists might come through there and to some
I
particular
don't know if it
city?
was part of the Chitlin Circus, but big artists did come through. You know, Louis Armstrong came through, Lionel Hampton, came through. Now people come through because they know people here, like Wynton
Okay,
Marsalis comes to New Mexico quite a
okay,
bit.
okay.
So, I mean,
I
you've
got
got
you.
an African American Business Council here.
Okay.
You've got
But when you
a
say here, you're more talking about in Albuquerque at this point, right?
the African American Business Council deals with businesses throughout the state.
Sure.
We also have the Office of African American Affairs. That is a statewide
Sure.
office that deals with the concerns of African Americans throughout the state. We have an African American Performing Arts Center that's
Okay.
located in Albuquerque. I'm part of the African American Museum and Cultural Center
Yes.
of New Mexico, which is looking at making our African American legacy visible, vital, valuable, bringing out our history.
Now, let's stop there for a minute. The center that you just spoke of, is it's in Albuquerque? Do you all have a building? Do you do
No, we
tours?
have,
What have you?
so we've been an initiative since 2002, and we are still trying to get a standing building. We think we're on our way this year. We've got some legislative funds, but really what we developed was a 40-some panel traveling exhibit that
Okay.
showcases the early African-American history of Albuquerque, of Santa Fe, of Raton, of Las Cruces. And we go to the different museums throughout the state because it's our proposition that young people going into museums, especially our children, should see their faces on the wall.
Sure.
Because we've been a part of this history since the 1500s. Sure. So they are entitled to see their faces on the wall because we are a part of the history of New Mexico. We want a permanent building because even though we stay in other museums for up to a year and they do the exhibit, once that comes down,
Yeah, sure,
you know,
sure,
everybody's
sure,
in the same boat again until
sure,
you come back.
sure,
So
sure.
making, because our history's permanent,
Yeah,
you
sure,
know,
sure.
it's not, you know.
Well, let me ask you this: if as a visitor, if I were to come to your city, what would you show me from a Black history perspective?
Well, I think, oh, there's just so many things. You know, Blackdom is a historic site, you know,
Which is how far from how far is that from Albuquerque?
just going there to see that,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
got you.
going to early Albuquerque, going to the programming that the
Okay.
African American Performing Arts Center does
Oh, I
with
got you.
indigenous musicians of the state, the playwrights. I mean, we have playwrights, you know, of the state, taking you
Okay.
to the restaurants, of which we own one, Mr. Padrell's Barbecue House.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us about the barbecue spot. Yeah, let's
It
plug
has
it.
been
Plug
here
it.
since 1962, you know, and it's part of the legacy of moving somewhere for better opportunities. The Padrell families came out of Crosbyton, Texas, and were dealing with segregated schooling. And when you got to high school, you had to take a bus to get to the segregated school. And Mrs. Padrell said, no, 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 you know, just like the people who migrated in the early 1900s, we're not dealing with this mindset, and came to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Her husband, within his family, the Britt family, he had homesteaders, and he had people that owned trucking companies, and they did barbecue. And he brought that legacy with him to Albuquerque, and they started a barbecue restaurant in
Okay.
1962, and it's still here.
Is it like downtown, or is it in the Black
So we have,
neighborhood?
I mean, the way Albuquerque is, no, we have one in what's called the North Valley, which is one of the early places that people settled. And then we have one on the east side of the city.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. So lastly, when you come, what's the weather like? Is it, you know, and what's the
Well, we don't
landscape and
have,
what's near there? What does it look like?
it's dry. So usually people from the north, that's the first thing they notice, is it's very dry. There's no humidity. I mean, we're usually at 20%. So it's very dry. It's brown. It's not a green state, but it's a wonderful mountainous state. Like I said, we're at 5,000 feet in Albuquerque. The other thing that means is it changes how oxygen goes into your body when you're at higher.
So is it as bad as Colorado and Denver?
Colorado, Denver is 5,000 feet, and Albuquerque's 5,000 feet.
Really?
We're the same altitude. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So people, it takes a while to get used to. You know, people get headaches and stuff like that because the oxygen is different.
And then it's hot all year round, pretty much.
No, we have the 4 seasons.
Oh,
really? You know, it's very hot. July is probably your hottest month.
That's 90.
We have a winter. We have ski resorts in New Mexico.
Okay.
You know, so you do have winter. I think the thing that people probably would take a lot to get used to is we don't have a lot of rain. That's why we're semi-arid. So you don't get a lot of rain here, but you do have ski resorts and stuff like that.
Oh, I love it. And is there water near there, lakes or something?
No, I mean, we're on the Rio Grande. So there is water, and you've got lakes, Cochiti. You've got man-made lakes and natural lakes.
Oh, now what is the Rio Grande is a lake? What is Rio Grande?
Rio Grande is a river.
It's a river.
Yeah, it goes through Colorado, Texas, Mexico. The Rio Grande, it was the place of dispute that caused the war between Mexico and the United States. They used that Rio Grande. But yeah, the Rio Grande is Texas, New Mexico.
Okay.
It goes on up to Colorado. It's in Las Vegas. Beautiful. Yeah.
So is Albuquerque, do you all have a riverfront of the Rio Grande?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's not near
No.
Albuquerque
I
per
mean,
se.
it's not like, I mean, you just have to come to
Yeah,
see it.
yeah, yeah. You got to come
It's
see it.
different. Yeah, it's different.
One more thing. Are you all, because you're so close to Mexico, do you have the issue of the immigrants coming across? Is that something
The
like
border
they?
issues, of course. I
Oh, you
mean,
do.
a lot of the politicians, that's what they run on, you know, keeping the borders secure, keeping quote illegals out of the state. We have a lot of border entry points on the border between Mexico and New Mexico. So yes, that
Okay.
does we have St. Albuquerque is a sanctuary city. So, you know, all of those things have political implications.
I
So.
see. I see. Is there a question that I have not asked you? Just off the cuff, anything that you like, you wanted to share?
Well, I just that history is alive, you know,
Okay.
and all this history that we're talking about, the homestead history of New Mexico, all the descendants of these people who had vision and belief who came to New Mexico. Many still live here and,
Okay.
and have that legacy as part of their history. You know, many still own homestead land in the state of New
Oh,
Mexico.
really?
So,
Okay. Okay.
so that history is, you know, it's, you can touch it.
Yes.
It's not dead, you
Yes.
know, it's, and if you come, I mean, our museum is doing an exhibit right now called Facing the Rising Sun.
There you go.
It's about the journey of African-American homesteaders in New Mexico, and it's about their vision, their belief, and how sovereign ownership of land changed the trajectory of history of African Americans in the state of New Mexico.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, I thank you so very much for coming on the show and
Thank
sharing that with
you.
us, because you've enlightened me tremendously, and understanding that, and understanding that land component. And I guess what I want to ask you is, do you know of anybody who really made that work for them, owning that much land, where
Well,
like there are families down
I
there
mean,
that,
there are quite a few, but the Pettis family really comes to mind because they
okay,
had the 640-acre homestead, and then they purchased other land. And
okay,
so they had over 1,200 acres of land. Mr. R.A. Pettis was a farmer, so he was able to, through his farming expertise, to get resources to buy equipment. And then once they purchased all that land, very patient and very faithful people, they used what they call a divining stick to find wells on that
okay,
land for
okay,
water. And so the divining stick, as I understand it, is a witching stick. And it's a peach tree that has a fork to it, a limb. And when a person takes it, if they have faith and belief, the power of the creator will go through their body and will take that stick and push it down when it's over water.
I
And the
love it.
Pettis family found 3 wells that way. They had all this land. They divided it up into 1-acre plots that they sold to about 300 families. And to those 300 families, they sold water, because with their 3 water wells, they developed an independent water utility company, one of the only ones I've heard of in the state of New Mexico. It was their own water utility company. And they supplied water. So they had a company called Mesa Land Development, where they sold land. And once you bought the land, you also got water from them. And they had that into the 2000s. They just sold it maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, but they still owned the land. They still
I
owned
love
their
it.
land.
Yeah, one more thing that just came to mind. You said earlier that Madam C.J. Walker came through.
Madam C.J. Walker
Yeah.
had a brother who migrated to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and was an entrepreneur in Albuquerque and had 2 daughters. And she came to to Albuquerque when she was starting her product, and the two daughters of her brother, her nieces, became salesmen for her and worked with her when she went to Colorado, and one of them stayed with her throughout her whole business experience.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, hey, thank you. So, I got a couple more right quick. I'm checking the clock. You also said that there were a number of jazz artists that came through, or famous people. George Benson or something like that.
James Lewis, who was the founder of the Modern Jazz Quartet, was brought up in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
He is a native of Albuquerque, New Mexico. His nieces, nephews still live here. We have an auditorium named in his honor, and they do a program usually once a year, and people that worked with him as an artist in the Modern Jazz Quartet, I mean, they did so many albums. So he is one of the musicians that came out of the state of New Mexico who's very well known.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Now we got it all in, everybody. We gonna get them in. And so once again, give us the website for your historical museum center, so that people can, and how they can support you all, and so on and so forth.
So it's the African American Museum and Cultural Center of New Mexico.
Okay.
The African American Museum and Cultural Center of New Mexico. We have a Facebook, and yeah, you can go into that. And then with the barbecue, we've got Mr. Pardrell's Barbecue House.
Yep.
Mr. Pardrell's BBQ.
Yeah. How you spell Pardrell? How you spell that?
Pardrell is
Yes.
P-O-W-D-R-E-L-L.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's Mr. We put Mr. in front because they came out of Texas where nobody addressed a Black man with Mr. in front of their title. It was always boy, or, so it's Mr.
MR.
MR,
Yep.
Mr. Pardrell's BBQ at AOL.com.
Yeah, there it is. Now we got it all in. And so I thank you so much for
thank you.
being on the show and telling us these amazing stories. Everybody hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations, because we're going to give it to you. I'm telling you. I find the people and I ask them questions, but they give it to you. And hit the like button on this video, because I know all them things, unless you just really smart, you might not have known. Like this, hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up, you get notified that, boom, there's something new on Strong Inspirations. And then tell somebody about us. Don't keep it to yourself, please. Let it share. And then everybody, when you get down in that New Mexico area, go give them a call and see this beautiful sister, because she's going to be ready to and excitedly tell you, show you, give you literature, what have you, on the Black history out of that state. And so to you, I say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. I really mean this, that I really want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing. I love that through your family's background in the medical field and in the ministry and so on and so forth, and through that Pittsburgh area, that you have gone to college in New Mexico. You got there, you had all them A's when you was in grade school and high school. They said, hey, come on down and study. And then you took it to the next level and became an integral part of that community, educating them people, natives and otherwise. And that's a beautiful thing. Please keep doing that. And so everybody, this is what we do here, Strong Inspirations. And let me ask you this, one more thing. Is there in native language or otherwise where y'all say something about New Mexico, a motto or goodbye or anything that can close us out?
Bienvenidos. Welcome.
Oh, I love it. That's Spanish, right?
Yeah.
I love it. There you go. That's the end. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.